Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri. And today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Annie, and I'm so excited to get to know her as you all are also getting to know her as well. So Annie, if you could just introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
Sure. My name's Ani Kyd WOLF, and I am a musician, filmmaker, director, producer. I've been a musician for many, many years, probably more like 40 years now. And I've actually have a film company called Sugar Skull Films, and we are in the process of development of a whole bunch of different really cool projects, some feature films, some basically some TV series, some web series, all kinds of stuff. And I do a lot of the I am a producer, and I've directed a ton of music videos, all kinds of stuff actually. So and I'm here in British Columbia, Canada, and there's still snow on the ground, as I was just saying a few minutes ago to Miss Bell here. And really cool being able to be here in the middle of this whole crazy pandemic and being able to be here in the middle of the woods pretty much and still do my work. We're prepping for a film that's coming up that I will be directing in the summer that hasn't been released. It hasn't been announced yet. So I'm not actually supposed to say anything about it, but keep an eye open for my name in the next little while and you'll know. And I also just did an interview with a baseball website because they heard that I'm going to be doing another baseball film. I produced a film last year called The Silent Natural. And I'm going to be doing the new one is on the Phil Marshall story. And Phil was a member of my family, and his story is unreal and incredible. So I've been working on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like you have your plate full and that you're very creative, obviously. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, like, when did you first get started? When did you first know that you were gifted or, just really had the calling or the passion to, do movies and producing and that kind of thing?
Well, my mother is a musician, and she's a fantastic musician. A lot of members of my family are. My aunt also incredible. She's an incredible musician, writer. My mom is just one of those really gifted people, and she'll sing all the time. All of our childhood, all she did was sing, no matter what it was, old songs, everything, like just an incredible voice. And so we were always around music. It was a big part of my life. And my mom says that I've been a director since I was in grade 2 because I orchestrated this whole entire play and, all this different stuff. And I was one of the kids in grade 2. And I did all this stuff. And I even came home and taught my mom how to help me make props for the play. And so she's always like, I always knew you'd be a director. So it's pretty cool. And she doesn't talk at all like that, but I just thought it was funny. A few years ago, see, one of the things with film, as we all know, is that many years ago when I was young, film was so hard to make anything, a very expensive, long process. You couldn't just make a film. You couldn't do things like this incredible podcast. You couldn't do stuff that, everybody be, you know, have access to. And so it was really difficult to be into an industry where you couldn't actually, you know, you would have great ideas or you'd write really cool things, but you could never actually get them to any point, right? Because it was so ridiculously expensive. And you know, doing everything on film, of course. And then as digital became more accessible or for people and easier, and cameras, like people were, you know, YouTube came out and it was this incredible creation, and it really helped people be able to, like, very incredibly talented people all over the world be able to put out their content. And when that kind of stuff started happening, I think lots of people got in to where the, you know, be able to shine in their creative way, right? So I think that that to me has always been something really great to see. Like, I love seeing, you know, lots of people of all ages, when, you know, young filmmakers or old filmmakers or people who, you know, just are being creative. To me, that's fantastic. And people writing music and putting it online and doing different things, so that you know, we're all so connected these days, and it's lovely to see, right? It's lovely that you can, you know, work with people who basically are in a different country than you, and you can work on, you know, a film together, or you can work on, you know, music together. I have a song that we did for the film that's coming out, and I did the vocals. The person who did the music, most of the music, is in Vancouver. The cello player is in Ontario, and the producer is still in another city. And we all put it together, and we just sent files to each other, right? So it's amazing what we can do today. And I encourage people all the time, if you have an idea, if you have anything, you know, just keep pushing it, do it. And you know, write a script or do a short film, put it online. And you know, it's so amazing for your soul to be able to be creative. And I think that's incredibly important for everybody, because everyone has a little gifting inside of them, you know, they all do. And they need to be able to express that. And I think that's kind of part of our journey, all of us in life. And I think it's quite important. That's just my thing.
No, it definitely is. And you brought up a great point. I was going to ask you, you know, you said, make sure that you keep going. And, you know, like if you have that creative feeling, if you have that pull to be creative and do. So has
Yes,
that
ma'am.
always been easy for you? Is that something you struggled with early on? How do you keep the perseverance so you don't quit? Because it is a process.
Yes, ma'am. It is a process. And I think that there's so many talented people out there that do quit, right? They give up, and it's so sad, because, you know, I mean, this world, okay, there's so many different channels now. There's so many different places for content, right? So if you've got an idea, I think that some things happen with people where they get really stuck on something. They're like, I want to make this show, and I want to make it for HBO. And that's the only place I want it to go, right? And they get stuck on an idea, and they get stuck on the development of it, and how they feel that it should go. And you know, you basically, like, there's a saying called "let go and let God," right? And for me, it's very important to not try to control absolutely every bit of the creative process, because the creative process is brought, you know, we're all given it. We're given it in some sort of form. And I think that with, you know, with not being tied to an outcome, you know, you can weave your creative works into wonderful places. And I think that's why I think a lot of people do give up, and because they're trying to put that, you know, square peg in the round hole, and they're not just letting go and seeing, well, you know, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe there's something over here. Maybe, wow, you know, I put it on YouTube, and maybe this didn't get a whole bunch of hits and likes and everything, but maybe the next one will. And I've done so many things, people, that have been classified as failing. right? And I never feel that it's failure. I always have felt like, sure, there's times when it's hard and you're exhausted and everything from what you're doing, but you have to keep going, and you have to see that if you're trying to push that square peg in that round hole and it's not working, then you have to try something different. And I think that you can know that, okay, well, that doesn't work, so now I got to move on and just go with the flow. Sometimes you got to put projects aside for a while, and then when they start to bubble or something comes forward to them, then you got to work with those projects. And I think it's really important that we realize that we can't be tied to an outcome, like tied to and so narrow focus. We have to let go and let our creator, whoever that may be for anyone out there, you have to let go and really realize that there is a process and there's a big picture, and we're not necessarily in control of it all.
That's true. And I love that, because I know for me, having a podcast, there's so many times, and I've only been doing it for not even a year, but there are times when you
Wow.
put stuff out and you're like, you think this is going to be the one, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is going to go viral or whatever it is that your goal is. And then you put it out and you're like, you don't always get the result that you think you're going to get. But consistency is literally like the only way that you can be successful in anything. And so I love that you said that, because I feel like so many people, they just want this outcome. And it's like, I want to make this movie. I want it to be in the theaters, and then I want to get an Oscar, and then that's it. And it's like, and then when it doesn't happen, they're like, I never want to make a movie again.
Yes. Exactly. And I think that that's such a problem with creative people, is that they're so tied into this big illusion of what something should look like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not being successful. Doesn't mean that you failed, and just because you don't get 9 million hits on something, you never know. You could have changed one person's view on something. You could have entertained someone when they needed it, or you could have just put content out there that helped in some sort of way. We don't know how we all affect each other, right? And how we're all connected, and we all are connected. And so for me, I just keep moving forward and doing the best that I can. And sometimes I see stuff on the horizon and it looks like it could be really great, but then I don't want to get too, tied to that, because I don't want to get disappointed. And I just want to keep moving forward. And I feel like if I can keep moving forward, I can keep producing content, I can, do the legwork and work with fantastic people. I work with this amazing writer in Los Angeles. I don't know if you know her. Terry Campbell Bell. She's like amazing. But I know she's one of these amazing, seriously, that woman is incredible. And I work with writers that are like that, really smart, fun, interesting, intelligent people that are moving forward. And I love that. I love that, we just pick up the pieces and we're like, okay, this didn't quite work for now. Well, let's try something else. And maybe that one will later, right? We don't know. And I think that that's some of the stuff that we have to really, move forward as an artist, and not get disappointed when something doesn't necessarily go your way. You're right about consistency. The consistency, just keep going and keep making. And sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you'll need to take, I need a break. That's okay. Just keep going.
If you're just now tuning in to this episode of Unmute Your Mic, my name is Jessica Bell, your host from Kansas City as always. And we are currently talking to Annie, and we are talking everything about the industry, music industry, movie industry, all of the above. And she's giving us some amazing tips on how to never quit and how to not compare yourself to others in the industry that is so full of comparisons. So please continue to listen. Yeah, and I love that. And you're so encouraging, because like you mentioned, my mom being one of the writers that you work with, you have to have enough inside of you to not only encourage yourself to keep going, but to encourage the people that you're working with to keep
Yes,
going
ma'am.
too. And sometimes I know that can be difficult because I teach. And so sometimes it is hard to have to encourage when you sometimes are like, okay, you know, you're hoping or praying for a certain result in something, but you still have to also have other people alongside you who you're
Mm-hmm.
helping and you're building up because you want other people to come along on the ride with you as
Yes.
you're becoming more and more successful. And
Mm-hmm.
so I also wanted to ask you, how do you not compare yourself to other people? Because I know in the industry is a very competitive type of thing, from whether you're acting or singing or writing or whatever it is. How do you make sure that you stay in your lane so that you are not out here just trying to do what everybody else is doing?
I think that if you're being authentic, and it's coming from inside, then it is what it is, right? I think that's who you are. And if you're doing something that feels right and feels in line to the way that you feel that you should be, I think that that's when, that's when you got to be authentic. And I know it's hard to say that when there's so many things going on and so many, like you must have the same thing with podcasts. There's so many different podcasts. There's so many different programs. There's so much stuff happening, right? And some might go, "Oh, you're just like this, or you're just like that," or they compare you. And I think that, it's what you need to do, or the people out there what they need to do, and what I try to do, and how we got to look at is being as authentic as we can with what moves us, right? I do things because it drives me. It keeps me alive. It keeps me in line with my higher power. Like, it keeps me motivated, and I feel like when I'm doing that, I'm on the right track. When I feel like I'm grumpy or something's, or I feel insecure about something, or I feel like somebody's, because a lot of the times people will compare you, right? And that's when the problem is because people will compare you, and then you rethink everything, and you look at yourself and you're like, "Oh, am I like that? Should I be more like that? Should I da 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 da?" And then you start to step off track of your own goals and your own passions and your own projects that move you, right? And I think that to me is the problem, is that when you start to look outside of yourself for the answers from other people, or you start to compare yourself, instead of just looking at what's in front of you and going, "Hey, I really like this. I really like what I'm doing, and this feels right to me." When you start to do that, then that's where the problem is, because I've worked with people who are so incredibly talented, but they were so insecure because they had people, saying to them, "Well, you shouldn't write like that. You should write a song that's kind of more chipper." And the person could be a dark artist who's doing this, and they're thinking, "I got to write a chipper song now." So, I mean, I think the thing is when you got to be as authentic as who you are to who you are, and not listen to those outside forces, right? Especially when there are other people doing other things. We have to focus on the energy that we have, and where we can do the best, our best contribution to the world, right? And that's kind of the way I look at it. And sometimes it's music, because people say to me, "Oh, weren't you a musician? Didn't you play heavy metal? Didn't you play punk rock? Didn't you play blues? Didn't you do this?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I've done all that stuff because I love it all." Right. And, I've had things where, like, you're being a performer and it's like I've gained weight or something, and then you feel insecure about that. And then you're thinking, then you'll see a performer that's on stage who's way heavier than I was at the time or something. And I'm thinking they're a goddess, and it's like, so it's like we have such, we have such twisted thoughts from society is really what it is, in my opinion. And I think that, when we keep looking outside of ourself for that love and recognition, that's when there's a problem, instead of just putting our head down and working towards the goal, and then accomplishing that goal and putting it aside and moving on and moving on. And if you still feel good about what you're doing, and you feel positive, and you feel like you're working towards something that is moving you in a creative and wonderful way, well, then that's what's important. That's what's important. And everybody else, so many people are out there and they're not doing anything, and they're insecure, and they'll slash at other people and everybody on the internet and everyone. And that's when you have to kind of just step out of yourself and kind of go, wow, that's really sad for them. In a lot of ways, it's sad for them, and just focus on what you're doing. And you doing stuff like this, and people out there, it's great. There's so many people who are stuck at home, and they want good content. They want fun. They want, they want to feel out alive again. And I think that as an entertainer, that's kind of what we're there for, to help people on their journey.
Definitely. And I love what you said, keeping your head down and doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Because I feel like often we get tripped up because we're so busy trying to see what everybody else is doing. It's like the sprinter who's running, but they're winning, but they keep turning to see where everybody else is. And then they end up, falling or falling
Yes,
behind, because they're so worried about what is everybody around me doing, and am I falling short? Am I not on the right time, schedule that everybody else is on? So I think it's so important that we know that our story and our journey is our own. And it is our job to make sure that we're walking through that, and we're hitting our own personal milestones, not the milestones that other people have put in front of us. Like, hey, by 25, you should have this.
Yes.
By 30, you should have this. Because that can get really disappointing. That can really make you feel like you have just failed at life, like altogether. And even though sometimes we put those out there for ourselves, and then we get upset when we don't make the mark or whatever it is. So I really love that you said that. And with you being so encouraging, I wanted to ask you, when was a moment where you felt like, maybe I'm not going to do this anymore? And then what made you keep going?
Oh, many times. We all have those moments, right? We all have those moments. And many times in my life, I've felt that this hill was too steep to climb. And I had to learn a process of kind of just doing some self-care, I think. And I think that that's one of the things where we get so I've had, I've done all kinds of things, but I've knocked on so many doors and had so many doors shut in my face, repeatedly. So everything that I've accomplished, you could say 10 to 100 doors have been slammed. Right. So, I think that that's what people look at. They look from the outside, they look and they go, wow, look at all your accomplishments are like this. It's like, yeah, but I've had a million times people say no. Right. But my goal was never to be like, I want to have that Oscar. I want to have this. I want to have that. I joke about stuff like that all the time, but I think that, one of the things is it's very important is that, we have to, it's the staying true to ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And I think that when you're an artist, the person that beats you up the most is yourself, right? Like, you're constantly looking at how to improve, how did this, should I be more this, should I be, 10 pounds lighter, 10 pounds heavier, like stuff that has zero bearing to creativity. And as women, we're really, focused on that. We're focused on, we have to look a certain way. We have to be a certain way for this. Not only do we have to do all this other stuff, but we have to have this perfect this. But meanwhile, this is one thing that came to me only in the last 10 years is that body shapes and body types are so gorgeous and amazing when there's confidence behind them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the size, the shape, anything. But if you got that style and that walk and that saunter and that lust for life, then it's attractive, right? And I super appreciate seeing people, just doing their own thing, and not like, I don't care, not that kind of doing their own thing, but just genuinely doing what they're doing and loving it. And for me, I've had so many times in my life, so many times where I've sat there and I've cried, or I've sat there and been exhausted because I've worked at trying to put that square peg in that round hole, and trying to, no, I just got to do it. And I had this one project that I had all these amazing actors involved. I had this great script. I had this stuff, but it's not going anywhere. And I was like, how come this isn't going anywhere? How come this isn't going anywhere? And it just, I beat myself up because I was like, it's your fault. It's your fault. But meanwhile, the way the universe is and the way we're all connected, it's like things happen for a reason. They happen the way they're supposed to happen, and they happen when they're supposed to happen. And to me, I really strongly believe that. And I feel that there's been times where it's like, I wanted to share this quick story with you about my friend. I had a friend, and he was one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. We rode motorcycles together. He was fun. He was an engineer. He was the CEO of his company at an IT company. He owned a small house in Kitsilano, Vancouver, which is a really nice area. And then he moved to and bought himself another beautiful house, like big. And he had this company, he had this beautiful cars, very handsome, like incredible personality, really sweet. And my friend was beat himself up so much, but didn't share his dilemmas with anyone, or try to talk about it, or say, hey, I need some help, or, oh, I feel just so exhausted about this, or anything. And we were so close. And I went to Coachella. I went to Coachella, and he was supposed to pick me up at the airport or whatever, like just good friends, right? And he was struggling. He was struggling with hating himself, struggling with not feeling good enough, right? He was going to be 40 years old, and he was like, I should have this, this, and this, millions of dollars. And he had built these completely unrealistic things for himself. And he was by far one of the most successful people I've ever met in my life, right? And what he did. And my friend committed suicide because of how hard he was on himself and how not good enough he felt. And here was one of the most, from the outside looking in, was one of the most successful, wonderful people I'd ever met in my life. So we have no idea how the world looks at us too. And so sometimes we think that the world looks at us in a really bad and a down way. And the world sometimes could be totally the opposite, looking at you for all of your accomplishments, and you, Jessica, for your beauty, and, like stuff like that. Like, you don't know how people perceive you. Some is good, some is bad, but sometimes you can make a little difference that's good in people's lives. And my friend, taught me a lot about being fun and smart. And he was a chef too. And he had all these great things, but he also taught me so much about how much we can destroy ourselves, even though we've put unrealistic expectations, but we feel that they're realistic and we're not meeting those goals. And he just, his insecurities and all of that pain took over, and he's gone now today. And so I think of those kind of things when I'm having a hard time, like when I feel like I'm suffering and I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, and I feel this, I think about my friend Kara and how he took his life, and he was doing so well. So there was no perspective there. So I try to have a little bit of perspective and just kind of am like, okay, well, I need to be easy on myself today. I need to have a bit of self-care because I'm having a hard day and I'm beating myself up. So I need to, I don't know, just relax, have a cup of tea, watch a silly cartoon or something, and just put the work down and just relax and realize that I'm okay. And I'm going to be okay tomorrow if I keep on this, positive thing. And I'm not always positive. I'm, we're people, right? I definitely, I definitely feel like you have to kind of put the brakes on and take some time for you. And when you start to start to lose perspective, that's when it's important to understand that, it's not this whole thing, this whole world, and this whole, game that we play it's not, we're not holding the strings,
Yeah.
and
And I
the,
couldn't agree more. I thank you
yeah,
so much for sharing that story, because I think that's
you're welcome.
really important for people who are listening. It's really
Yes,
important because we can often look at people and immediately just say, oh my gosh, they must have it all. They're
yes,
this or they're that. And like you said, we can be so hard on ourselves, because I know, as being like in the podcast industry, I can always look at where I want to go, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I have 100,000 subscribers or whatever the goal is. But then
hmm,
there are people who have one subscriber that are looking at me and they're asking me questions, and
yes,
I'm like,
ma'am,
why are you asking me? But I think
yeah,
that's so important, because at every level, there's always going to be people who are ahead of us, but then there's always going to be people who are looking up to us, wanting to get to where we're at. And so,
yes,
like you said, that perspective is everything, to know that it really is a journey, and that, as we're trying to get to where we want to be, we have to be kind to ourselves and
yes,
not just beat ourselves up every time we don't get
yeah,
some outcome that we want. And Annie,
yeah.
I just thank you so much for being on my podcast today. I just wanted to end with this final question.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
you could just talk to the person who's listening right now, who
Hmm.
maybe are trying to break into the industry, maybe they're very creative, but they're having a difficult time, could you just speak a minute of encouragement into their lives to let them know to keep going and not give up?
Yes. Um, all right, you guys out there, I want to say to you, there's going to be times that are going to be hard, but if you're following your dreams and you're following your goals and you keep moving forward and you keep being consistent and being kind to others as you go and helping others is a real important thing, because like Jessica said, we don't know, that person who's asking us can help, for help. We could be like, why are you asking me? But you have no idea how you affect people, and so just keep moving forward, little bit at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time, and you'll get to those goals. It might not be the exact same goal that you wanted, but you're going to get there where you're really gonna, where people are going to really need you to be.
I thank you so much again, Annie, for talking to us today, sharing just a little bit of your story, sharing all of that encouragement that I know people needed to hear. And I want to thank everybody for
Thank you.
tuning into another episode of Unmute Your Mic. As always, I'm your host, Jessica Bell from Kansas City, and you can stay connected with us at unmuteyourmic.org. You can subscribe there, sign up on our newsletter. We also have merchandise. Please make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Annie, thank you. God bless you. It has
God
truly been
bless.
an honor to have you on my podcast. And
Thank you so
everybody
much.
who's listening, I just want to remind you to be bold, be brave, and continue to unmute your mic. Thank you, Annie.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.